are irrelevant. So of all things, Mahamati, that to which negation and affirmation are irrelevant is not to be conceived. Those who refrain from negation and affirmation, furthermore, do not conceive of non-existent rabbit horn, because of mutual reference to the possibility of its existence. It is not to be thought by them that rabbit horn does not exist. By thorough investigation of even the most minute particle, due to the ungraspability of substance, Mahamati, it is not to be thought that cattle horn exists that disappears in the realm of ultimate knowledge. Quote, Then Mahamati, the great Bodhisattva, said this to the Blessed One. Surely, Blessed One, having seen the non-operation of imagination, we would infer that the non-operation of imagination refers to its non-existence. Quote, The Blessed One said, No, Mahamati, the non-operation of imagination does not refer to its non-existence. Why? Because of imagination's being the cause of the operation. The issue of the subject of the horn is imagination, insofar as the issue of the subject of horn, Mahamati, is imagination, therefore, being the cause of the subject, neither other nor not other, the reference is not to the non-existence of rabbit horns. If imagination were other than the rabbit horns, it would not be the cause of the rabbit horns. But if it were not other, then being the cause, being none other than horn ungraspable by analysis into the most minute particles, it would be non-existent. If the existence of both is non-existent, in reference to what, pertinent to what, is there non-existence? So there is no existence that can be related to the non-existence of rabbit horn. Rabbit horn cannot be imagined in reference to non-existence. Because of the incompatibility of their premises, the non-existence and existence expounded by philosophers of non-existence and existence cannot be established. Others with dogmatic views, immersed in the idea of an original locus of form, familiar with the indivisibility of the existence of space, seeing form separate, imagine form apart from the existence of space. But if form too, Mahamati, is also of space, because it is everywhere form is, space is also form. The distinction of the two phenomena form and space is to be understood by definition of content and container. Active elements with mutually distinct characteristics are not stationed in space, yet it is not that there is no space in them. So is rabbit horn, Mahamati, compared to cow horn, the horn of cattle. Furthermore, Mahamati, being analyzed into atoms, and then the atoms being analyzed into particles, are not established in particulate form. In reference to what can its non-existence be? The same principle applies to anything compared to another. Quote, Then the Blessed One also said this to Mahamati, the great Bodhisattva. You and other bodhisattvas should be free from views and imaginings of rabbit and cow horn, space and form. And you should contemplate the construction of subjective mental objects, and in the domains of all successors of the victors you should teach the discipline of subjective mental objects. Quote, Then the Blessed One uttered these verses. Mind is not an object of perception. Thought proceeds from the perceived. The receptacle is known to people as the body, property, and abode. The guides explain mind and intellect, consciousness, nature's 5 elements. Twofold selflessness, purity. The association of long and short etc. occurs by mutual relativity. Non-existence is the complement of existence. The complement of non-existence is existence. One should not think up form, even analyzed into particles. The state of mind alone does not become clear by false views. It is not the domain of logicians, nor even of listeners either, the realm realized first-hand that the guides point out. Then Mahamati, the great Bodhisattva, to purify the stream of subjective mental objects, also asked the Blessed One, How, Blessed One, is the stream of subjective mental objects purified, all at once or gradually? Quote, The Blessed One said, Gradually, Mahamati, is the stream of subjective mental objects purified, not all at once. Just as fruit ripens gradually, not all at once, in the same way, Mahamati, people's stream of subjective mental objects is purified gradually, not all at once. Just as a potter makes vessels gradually, not all at once, so too, Mahamati, does the realized one purify people's stream of mental objects gradually, not all at once. Just as the grasses, shrubs, herbs, and trees on the earth grow gradually, not all at once, in the same way, Mahamati, the realized one, purifies people's stream of subjective mental objects gradually, not all at once. Just as the arts of entertainment, dance, song, music, lute playing, and writing develop gradually, not all at once, in the same way, Mahamati, the realized one, purifies all people's subjective stream of mental objects gradually, not all at once. Just as the appearances of all forms in a mirror are seen without distortion all at once. In the same way, Mahamati, the realized one, purifies all people's stream of subjective mental objects all at once as an undistorted realm without false images. Just as the radiance of the sphere of the moon or sun illumines the appearances of all forms at once, Mahamati, in the same way the realized one shows the domain of inconceivable knowledge of the victors all at once to people who are detached from valueless impressions of subjective mental objects. Just as the receptacle consciousness conceives of subjective mental objectification of body, abode, property, and territory all at once. In the same way, Mahamati, a resulting Buddha, having perfected a realm of being all at once, brings it into practitioners' contact with the asylum of the palace of the highest abode. Just as the Buddha of the nature of reality shines all at once with rays of resulting emanations, so too, Mahamati, does the character of the reality of first-hand ultimate attainment appear all at once by ceasing false views of being and non-being. Furthermore, Mahamati, the Buddha issuing from the nature of reality, teaches the ungraspability of immersion in the variety of assorted illusory scenes and persons, which is not that itself as all things in particular and in general explained by definitions based on impressions of subjective mental objects are based on immersion in imagined nature. Moreover, Mahamati, the conventional descriptions of what is by nature merely imagined develop from immersion in what is by nature relative. Just as a combination of grass, wood, brush and vines, assembled by a person with knowledge of magic, made up in the same form as all people, appears as a magic image of a person postured in various ways, yet even appearing so is not that itself. In the same way, Mahamati, there appears a diverse description of variously conceived thoughts in respect to relative nature, in terms of imagined nature, forming conceptions out of impressions from immersion in descriptions of imaginations of things. Mahamati, the appearance of what is by nature merely imagined comes to be. This, Mahamati, is the teaching of the resulting Buddha. The Buddha of the nature of reality specifically makes a basis of the realm of first-hand ultimate attainment independent of conceived descriptions of inherent nature, the projected created Buddha. Furthermore, Mahamati establishes the practical application of distinction of characteristic outcomes of giving, discipline, meditation, concentration, distinct insight and knowledge, consciousness of liberation from the clusters, elements, and sense media, and by means of a religious view, teaches complete transcendence of form. The Buddha of reality, furthermore, Mahamati, is objectless, independent of objects, desisting from descriptions of assessments of all active sense organs, not within range of the ignorant, or listeners, or solitary illuminates, or dogmatists immersed in descriptions relating to identity. Therefore, Mahamati, one should make contact with the uniqueness of first-hand ultimate attainment and be able to see independently of what is seen through subjective description. Furthermore, Mahamati, there are two distinctions in the guidance of the vehicle of listeners, namely the special characteristic of first-hand ultimate attainment, and the characteristic of immersion in the nature of the notion of existence. What is listeners' special characteristic of first-hand ultimate attainment? By the calm of dispassion toward objects, which are empty, without identity, painful, and impermanent, one concentrates on the specific and common extinction of external things, the clusters, elements, and media. Having concentrated their own minds, listeners reach the abode of bliss characterizing first-hand ultimate attainment without passing on by inconceivable transformation, due to the influence of release attained as a result of the path of meditation, liberation, and concentration. This Mahamati is a description of the first-hand ultimate attainment of listeners. Having attained the bliss of the abode of first-hand ultimate attainment of listeners, Mahamati, great bodhisattvas should not make the bliss of extinction and the bliss of fulfillment fully evident by attention to working for people drawn by their own previous vows. This Mahamati is the bliss characterizing the first-hand ultimate attainment of listeners, in which bliss characterizing the first-hand attainment of listeners great bodhisattvas should not train themselves. Now then, Mahamati, what is listeners' immersion in the nature of the notion of existence? That is, seeing the major elements, dark, light, warm, fluid, modal, solid, as an active, inoperative, bound to standards of understanding connected to subjective and shared definitions, imagination immersed in that nature goes on. Having attained this Mahamati, a bodhisattva should turn away from it. By entering into the characteristic of selflessness of phenomena, avoiding the notion of selflessness of person, one is to be established in the pursuit of the steps of the stages. That Mahamati is listeners' immersion in the nature of the notion of existence mentioned, and this is the answer to it. Quote, Then Mahamati, the great bodhisattva, said this to the Blessed One. The realm of first-hand wisdom is said by the Blessed One to be eternal and inconceivable, and the realm of ultimate truth. But don't dogmatists also say their principles are eternal and inconceivable? Quote, The Blessed One said, the eternal inconceivability of a principle of dogmatists does not obtain. Why? The eternal inconceivable of dogmatists is not consistent with the very definition of its own cause and reason. If whatever eternal inconceivable is applied to is inconsistent with the definition of its own cause and reason, how and why does eternal inconceivable apply to it? If the doctrine of an eternal inconceivable were connected to a cause and reason per se, because of being based on a cause or reason, the eternal would not be eternal or inconceivable. My eternal inconceivable of ultimate truth, however, consistent with a reason defining ultimate truth, apart from being and non-being due to the character of first-hand ultimate attainment, and being the cause of formal knowledge of ultimate truth beyond caused existence and non-existence. Consistent with the paradigms of uncreated space, nirvana, and extinction, is therefore eternal. So, Mahamati, it is not the same as dogmatists' doctrines of an eternal inconceivable. This is the eternal inconceivability, Mahamati, of those who arrive at reality, the reality of first-hand attainment of ultimate knowledge. Therefore, Mahamati, a great bodhisattva should make effort to attain eternal inconceivable ultimate knowledge. Furthermore, Mahamati, the eternal inconceivability of dogmatists derives from distinction from the idea of impermanence. It is not eternal recognized by reasoning of its own making. If the eternal inconceivability of dogmatists is apprehended by inference, seeing impermanence deriving from the existence and non-existence of what is created. For that very reason, Mahamati, mind too would derive from the demonstration of the baselessness of eternity in view of the impermanence due to the existence and non-existence of the created. If, moreover, Mahamati, the eternal inconceivable of dogmatists is connected to the definition of a cause, because of the non-existence of anything with the inherent characteristic of being a cause, the eternal inconceivable is equivalent to rabbit horn, hanging only upon the speech and imagination of the dogmatists. Why is that so? Rabbit horn consists only of words and imagination, being devoid of inherent cause. My eternal inconceivable, however, Mahamati, is eternal by reason of the character of first-hand wisdom being beyond the existence and non-existence of the created. Not eternal by equating eternity and impermanence with existence and non-existence of externals. To whatever eternity is attributed due to non-existence of externals, inference of eternity and eternal inconceivability, an inherent cause or reason of that eternal inconceivability, is not known. The first-hand attainment characteristic of the sphere of ultimate knowledge should not be referred to by you, Mahamati, as external. Furthermore, Mahamati, those who are frightened by fear of suffering based on imaginations of mundane life seek nirvana. Those who know mundane life and nirvana are not disparate. Think of nirvana as deriving from absence of all imaginations of things. and cessation of future objects, not after disengagement of the receptacle of consciousness, a first-hand realization. Thus Mahamati deluded.